We're up to Daf Lamed Aleph by the Mishnah. The Mishnah says like this. The Mishnah, huh? Oh yeah. The Mishnah says, Shnei kedarim sheyimahalchin zeh acher zeh. You have two people holding pottery that are walking one in front of the other. So Shnei kedarim sheyimahalchin zeh acher zeh. V'nitkel arishon v'nofal, and the first one stumbled and fell. V'nitkel asheni berishin, so the second one then fell on the first one. Harishin chai v'niskei sheni. The person has to pay for the second one's damages. Now, right off the bat, we had yesterday or 2 days ago a machlekes tanoim whether stumbling is considered a pshia. It's unclear whether it really matters. The Gemara will analyze it. The Gemara says like this: Rav Yochanan. So you read the Mishnah at first, you just think, well, it says you stumbled and you have to pay. Mistama, stumbling is a pshia that follows Rav Meir. Right? Rav Yehuda famously disagreed with that. We had that a couple days ago. So the Gemara says, no. Rav Yochanan, loy teima masnisan Rav Meir The Mishnah does not necessarily follow Rav Meir. I don't have to explain the Mishnah following Rav Meir. That stumbling is considered a pshia, v'chayiv, elafilu rabbanon. Even Rav Yehuda, who holds that stumbling is not a pshia, damri onesu upater. It's an oinus, so why do I have to pay? Over here, it's considered a pshia. Why? It's not the stumbling. It's because you had enough time that you could have stood up. Meaning, the case is not where they're mamish right in front of each other, so that you stumbled and instantly he fell. You stumbled, you could have stood up. You had enough time to get up, and you didn't. So, not standing up is the pshia. So, there's two shilas. There's the stumbling. That's one machlokes. Then there's not standing up. It's the second machlokes. So, in that regard, so that way, if you remember, I think if I'm not mistaken, again, if not standing up, I believe is also a machlokes that the Chachamim say chayiv b'dei neshamayim v'lo b'dei adam. But the point is, the two unrelated machloksim. So, correct. My point is, so this is not the reason why you're chayiv is not because you stumbled, but because you could have stood up. Don't we say that if you're chayiv by adam hamazik, it's whether shogeg, mezid, oinus, or ratzon? I guess oinus is a p'tur over here. Okay, I don't know. That I'll have to analyze. Okay, weiter. So the Gemara says, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak a second shot. Afilu tema loy hoyeloi amoid, hoyeloi lahazer v'loy hizer. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, no, the case is not, stumbling is not the pshia, and it's not even that you could have stood up, because the case is you couldn't have stood up. So what's the pshia? You could have yelled to the guy, stop walking. Meaning, as you're falling, you don't have enough time to get up, so you have 2 seconds. But you could have yelled, stop. And that by not yelling stop is a pshia. See, here's the kasha. The kasha, and that's a chiddush, by the way, because that means I could have seen that if you don't have enough time to get up, you can't have a taina on me for not yelling as I'm falling, stop. But that's Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak shita. Rav Yochanan disagrees. He says, no, kivan deloy hoya loy la'amay lo hoya lahazer. We don't have a taina on you by not yelling for the guy to stop because you didn't have enough time to get up. You didn't have enough time to warn him either, deterred. You were too preoccupied, and therefore it's not a taina on you. Okay, fine. So you have machlokes in the last case. If a person does not have enough time to get up and he's stumbling, but he could obviously yell stop. If he doesn't yell stop, is that a pshia? So machlokes in Nachman bar Yitzchak and Rav Yochanan. So the Gemara wants to bring a raya. Tanan. It says in the Mishnah, Hayabal Kaira Rishon, it's tomorrow's daf. Hayabal Kaira Rishon, Ubal Chavis Achron. So it's like an old bit. You have a guy walking with a beam, and a guy behind him is walking with a thing of glass, right? Or a pottery. And the beam stops walking, and the guy walks right into him. So what's the halacha? Nishbar Chavis B'Kaira, Potter. The halacha is that you're potter. Now we have to analyze what the case is. The case is not necessarily stopped, they're just walking, and the pottery walks into the beam, the potter. So it says the Gemara, Vim Ahmad Bal Kaira, but if the owner of the beam stopped walking, and that caused the pottery, meaning if the guy of the pottery runs into the beam, I'm not chayiv. But if the guy who walked the beam abruptly stops, and then the pottery walks into it, then the Baal HaBeam has to pay. Okay. Now here's the question. The question is why? What's the taina on him? Because he shouldn't have stood there. Now there's two different reasons why a person could stand. One is more understandable, and one is a pshia. Now my lav she'amid lekatef. The case is there's two different types of standing. One is amid lafish. Amid lafish is just you stopping for no reason. You're just stopping to catch a breather. That's a pshia. Then there's called Amid Lakatif. We had this in Masechah Shabbos. Amid Lakatif means you're stopping just to adjust the beam. Now that's perfectly reasonable. If I stop for a moment to adjust the beam, that's not a pshia on my part. So the Gemara assumes that's the case. So what's the pshia? If I'm just stopping to adjust the beam, what's the pshia? It must be the pshia is I should have yelled stop, and I didn't. So you see that not yelling stop is taka pshia. The Gemara says, my love, are we not referring to a Kesham Lakativ? That you stopped just for a moment to adjust the beam, which is not a pshia. So what's the taina? The orchehu uktani chayev, and the taina is the havil lahazir, because you should have yelled stop. So you see that not yelling stop, even if you don't have a lot of time, is a taina. So the Gemara says no. No. Really, that would be potter. What's the case? Really, if you stop, just adjust your beam, and you didn't say yell stop, no one has a taina on you. No one's going to have a taina. You're adjusting, that's not a taina. What's the case for your chayev is where you just stop for no reason. You stop to catch a breather. You stop just to look at the scenery, to take pictures. That's why you're chayev. See, here's the kasha. We have this many times in Shas. If you stop, there's a reason. Okay, I'll give you an example. You're driving on the highway. Yeah, I don't care about American law. Just think seichel. I don't know what the law is. I'm not saying it's not seichel. I just don't know what the law is. You're driving on the highway and you stop because what a beautiful sunset, and then someone bangs into you. Is a pshia? Of course, it's a pshia. What in the same case? You stop because a kid jumped in front of your car. Is that also a pshia? It's not a pshia. You did the right thing. So that's the same thing over here. Stopping to adjust your beam is not a pshia. That was considered normal. As I said, I knew an American law guy that think that you're always chayiv if someone bangs into you. Or wait, who's chayiv? The first one. So if you go on the highway, so if I go on the highway and I stop to look at the sunrise, and someone bangs into me, I'm not chayiv. I told you. Okay. Okay, fine. I'm saying, but conceptually.
If the guy in front of you to prove that he did something stupid, he's the guy behind him. The assumption is
oh, interesting. This must be crazy if you're listening to the daf. What? I guess so. I don't know.
I always have to worry that maybe this guy
Okay. I hear you. So the point is, so the Gemara's case is really the case where you're chayiv, where you just stop for no reason. See, here's the kasha. The end of the brisa wants to pick a case where you're potter. So the end of the brisa looks for a random case. But here's the question: if now you're telling me why you're stopped makes a difference, meaning if I stop for no reason, then I'm chayiv. But if I stop to adjust the bag, I'm potter, even though I could have yelled stop. So why does the end of the Mishnah find another reason to say you're potter? Go with this. So the Gemara is saying like this: Loi, sh'am lafish. The case where you stop just to rest. So that's a tayin on you. That's a pshia. But if you had stopped just to adjust the bag, you'd be potter, even though you could have told him stop. Here's the question: what would the halacha be if you just stop for a moment to adjust a beam on your shoulder? We would say potter, even though you could have warned them. So here's the question: Now the Tani safe, and then why does the end of the Mishnah? The end of the Mishnah is looking for a case of p'tur, and it goes to an outside case. Stick with this. What does the end of the Mishnah say? Im amr le'bal chavis amud potter. If while you're walking, you tell the guy, whatever the reason is, you stopped, you didn't stop, let's say you stopped to rest, but you yelled to the guy before, I am stopping to rest, please don't walk into me, and then the guy walks into you, potter. That's the Mishnah. So the question, why do you have to do that? Why not just go much more detailed and say, you stop, you're chayiv, but if you stop to adjust your bag, you're potter. Simple. So the Gemara says, just say, so why doesn't it say that? So it says the Gemara, I'll tell you why it doesn't say that. Because what it said is a bigger chiddush. What did it say? It said that if I stop to rest on the highway and I yell to everybody, hey, do not walk into me, and they walk into me, I'm potter. That's a chiddush. Because one could argue that you shouldn't be doing something wrong, even though you warned the guy, maybe you should be chayiv, but that's a bigger chiddush. So the reason why I didn't do that is not because Ahmad Lakatev is chayiv. It does not do with that. It picked this case because it's a bigger chiddush. Hakamash, the chiddush is the afa gav damad lavish. You stop to rest in the middle of the highway. Still, ki kamel balabayis amid potter. If you told the guy, do not walk into me, that's a reason to pati. Let's go one more raya, and then we'll go to a case that'll take us to the end of the daf. Tashima hakadorin va'azagon shayu malchin za'acher zeh. So we're going to read this case, and we're going to analyze this case for the rest of the daf. Okay, you have a pottery or a guy holding glass. They're walking one after the other. You got two guys, Reuven and Shimon. Nitkal Arishan v'Nafal. The first one stumbles and falls. V'nitkal Hasheni b'Rishon. It's actually Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Reuven falls. Shimon falls over Reuven, and then Levi falls over both of them. What's the halacha? V'nitkal Arishan v'Nafal. Nitkal Arishan b'Rishon. V'Shlishi b'Sheni. So you have Reuven falls over Shimon. Reuven falls over Shimon, and then Levi falls over Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon falls over Levi, and then Levi falls over Shimon. They're all just falling over each other. Here's the halacha. Rishon chayiv b'niskei sheni. The first one is liable for the damage he did to the second person. The sheni chayiv b'niskei shlishi, and the second one is liable for the third person. Okay, we'll have to find the case out. V'machmas rishon aflu, but that's only because you have Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Shimon fell over Reuven, and then Levi fell over Shimon. But what if they both fell over Reuven? And the Gemara is going to explain the cases where Reuven's lying across the highway, like this. So they're both just falling over the original guy, then he has to pay for everybody. Okay. Then Then says the Braisa, but if they warned each other, if Reuven said to Shimon, stop, and he didn't, and Shimon said to Levi, stop, and he didn't, potter. Okay, so here's the question. You see over here that warning is a reason to pot you. Now, what was Rabbi Yochanan or Rav Nachman Yitzchak's machlokes? The machlokes was, what if I don't have enough time? Is it a taina on me for not warning? So over here you see that warning is a ptur. And are we not referring to a case where they didn't have enough time? And you see that you have to warn. And if they had not warned, you'd be chayiv. So you see that even if you don't have enough time, it's all contingent on whether you warned or not. So the Gemara says, no, the case is where they had plenty of time. And that's why he had to warn. Had they not had plenty of time, meaning if Reuven stumbled and then he didn't even have a second to say, to get up, even though, he could have said stop as he's falling, he'd be potter. So here's the question. Again, so you're telling me that whether he warned or not, whether that's a ptur or not, depends on how much time he had. So why didn't the Mishnah say that at the end of the Mishnah? So why did the Mishnah say at the end that he's potter if you warned them? Very simple. Say like this. They stumbled on each other, they're chayiv, but that's only if they had enough time to stand up. Had they not have enough time, they'd be potter. Say that. So the Gemara says, and why not say that? The answer is, what it said was a bigger chiddush. And same thing we said before. The chiddush is they stopped. They had enough time to get up, but if they yell stop, that's a ptur. It's the same thing we had before. Okay, so now here's the flow to the end of the daf. We're going to have one line from Rava, and we're going to try to have a couple different approaches to explain what Rava means. So let's do it slowly, because this is just tricky, because it's how you translate the words. Rava says as follows. Again, you have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon falls over Reuven. Levi falls over Shimon. Okay, so Reuven has to pay for the second guy. The second guy has to pay for the third guy. Okay, so this is what Rava says. Rishon chayiv b'niskei sheni. The first one is chayiv for the damages that the second one has. Bein b'niskei gufay, bein b'niskei memoneh. Whether the damage was caused by his body or his bags. Meaning, if Reuven fell, and then people fell on him, Shimon fell on him. Shimon might have gotten hurt by Reuven's body, or he might have gotten hurt by Reuven's bags. Doesn't matter. Either way is chayiv. Now why? Reuven's body is chayiv because he's Adam Hamazik. So by the way, he's going to be chayiv whether he hurts Kalim, whether he hurts people. His bags are a bar. Okay, makes a lot of sense. So if Reuven falls, and then Shimon falls over him, so we're going to ask the guy, well, how'd you get hurt? So Shimon will say, well, I tripped on his leg. So okay, that's Adam Hamazik. And if Reuven and Shimon says, I tripped on his bag, so it's bar Hamazik. Either way, you're going to be chayiv. Again, just it'll have the details of bar and it'll have the details of Adam, but you understand. So far, makes sense. But here, where Rava says is something interesting. Sheni chayiv b'niskei shlishi. The second one is chayiv for the damages that he did to the third person. B'niskei gufoy avaloi b'niskei mimane. Only damage done by his body, not by his bags. So when Shimon fell, if Levi fell on Shimon, Levi can only demand money if he got hurt by Shimon's body, not by his bags. Although Reuven's bag is a bar, Shimon's bag is not a bar. That's a little strange. If Shimon's body is being mazik and he has to pay, then Shimon's bag should be a bar. So the Gemara has this kasha. Again, that's the way to read Rav at first. That the first one has to pay whether his body did damage or his bags, because his body is Adam, his bags are bar. Shimon only has to pay. The second one only has to pay. The third guy, if his body did damage, not his bags. His bags are not a bar. The question is why. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. If stumbling is considered a pshia, and that's why you're paying for the body that he did a hezek, right? If the body has to pay, then the bag should also be a bar. Then sheini nami l'chai. Then you should have to pay for the bags as well. And if you consider it an oinus, go to the next page. I feel the nami lifter. So I don't understand. If you're making the first guy pay for the body and the bags, then the second guy should pay for the body and the bags. What's the difference? So here's the chiddush. The Gemara says, Rishon vadei psheyahu, Sheni agufe mechayiv, dehavli lamr v'lo yomad, amamoyne potter, de'omer hai bira lav ano brise. The answer is like this. The first guy is considered a pesheya for stumbling. Therefore, he's responsible for his body, and his bags are a bar that he made. The second one, the Gemara perceives, the second one falling is not a pshia. His pshia was that he didn't get up. So when he fell the second time, his stumbling is not a pshia. But he should have stood up. So he's going to have to pay for that. But his bags is a bar created by someone else. Meaning, the first guy's bags, when he fell and dropped his bags, because he stumbled, and that's a pshia, he created that bar. So he's responsible for anything his bags did. The second one, the stumbling is not a taina on him, because he stumbled on someone else. It's not like he stumbled on his own feet. So that's not a pshia. Stumbling is not a taina. The taina is you should have gotten up. So he is responsible for himself. But what about his bags? You say, what's a bar? But Shimon says, I didn't make that bar. They're like, you're right. Reuven made that bar. So Shimon doesn't have to pay because it's a bar made by someone else. That's the pshat.
The same way, if the taina on him, he doesn't get up, right? Even though it's not his.
You're saying it's a taina he should have picked up his bags?
Yeah,
but that's a bar that I didn't make. That's like me saying.
You didn't make the stumble either.
No.
But we're saying there's a pshia for you not getting
Because
up.
you should have got up. And here's the difference. It's like me going down Main Street and I see Dovey dug a pit. And I'm like, I could fill up that pit. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not chayiv for that. I may be a jerk for doing it. I'm not chayiv. He made the bar. The first one made my bags into a bar. You have a taina if you're not picking it up? I don't have to pick it up. He should have to pick it up.
There shouldn't be a taina you're not getting up.
Because you're Adam Hamazik. Adam Hamazik, you're responsible.
On you to get up. You're not.
That's it's interesting. That's the pshat. So okay, so that's Rava's. That's the first pshat of understanding Rava. So to understand this make this please. The first one is chayiv for his body did damages or his bags. The second one only body, not bags. Here's the problem. The problem is there's a brisa meisvei kulon chayav and aniske gufan. Again, the brisa is you could have. We talk about 3 people. You could have 10 people, right? It could be like a pile up. One A, B, C, D, and E, and F. Keep going. So according to Rava, the first one is going to be chayiv for his body and his bags doing damages. The second one body, the third one body, the fourth one body, v'chule, right? The first one bags, and then just bodies. Here's the problem. The brisa says, kulon chayovin al nizke gufan, all of them are responsible for their bodies doing damages, uptur nizke mammon, but nobody is responsible for the bags. So he's basically, the brisa is saying that the second one is not responsible for his bags, or the third, or the first. Now this is not like what Rava says. Rava implies that the first one has to pay for his bags. The brisa says not like that. The brisa says nobody has to pay for damages their bags did. Now that's very strange. It's not like what Rava says. So the Gemara says, "My love filarishan." He says, "Kulon." That means even the first one doesn't have to pay. So that's a contradiction. Rava said the first one, if the first one fell, Reuven fell, and his bags did damage to Shimon and Levi, he'll have to pay. The brisa says not like that. So the Gemara says, "Loy lebar mirishan." When it says kulon, it means everyone except for the first. Okay, the Gemara says a kulam katani. It says kulam. It says kulam. It can't be kulan except for the first. It says kulam. So, Amar Ravad Barava, kulan hanizakin. It means all of the people that fell after the first one. All the ones who got hurt. Meaning, you have Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. So Reuven is not a victim because he did it himself. Shimon's a victim. Levi's a victim. Yehuda, Yisachar, and all of them. So when it says kulam, it means all the victims. Okay, so that's basically saying kulam not minus the first. Here's the problem. You shouldn't say kulam then. Say kol hanizakin. Then just say all the victims. It doesn't say that. You're reading into what it says. The Gemara says, "Hi mai, whoa. Iyamre b'shloim afilu rishin hainidar nikulam. Eliyamre the bar merishin my kulam listening hanizakin." If it meant what you're saying, it would say that, and therefore we have a problem. Rava, the way we read it, is that the first one's responsible for his body doing damages and his bags, and the second one just body, third one just body. The chule, the brisa says nobody's responsible for the bags, even the first. So we have to tweak Rava. Rava can't take on a brisa, so we're going to change what Rava said. Okay. El Amar Rava. Huh? Well, we're going to come back to this. But Rav.
They'd rather tweak Rava than say.
Yeah.
That's why it's a price because the words weren't 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%.
We say that.
I know, but still, it's still Rava. It's an Amora, so we're not going to. So El Amar Rava. Rava says like this: Rishon Chayiv. The first one is Chayiv for damages. Bein beniske gufay desheni, bein beniske memoyne desheni. No. Understand. Nobody is responsible for their bags doing damages. None of them. That's Reuven, Shimon, or Levi. So what's the difference between Reuven and Shimon? What did Rava mean? Reuven is chayiv whether he hurts Shimon's body or he hurts Shimon's bags. Because he's an Adam. Adam is no difference. Shimon is only responsible if he hurts Levi's body, not Levi's bags. Why? Because Shimon is a human bar. And a human bar, a bar, is not responsible for Kalim. That's what Rava meant. Rava is telling you a big chiddush. That when Reuven falls, he's an Adam HaMazik. And not his bags, because his bags are potter. But he's an Adam HaMazik. And therefore, B'nitkal Pesheya does not go to bags. Okay, so Reuven is chayiv, because he's an Adam HaMazik. And therefore, he's going to have to pay for any damage he did, whether he hurt people or bags. Because an Adam is no difference. When Shimon falls, he's not an Adam. He's a bar. He's a human bar. And therefore, because he's a human bar, he's only responsible for people that he hurt, not Kalim. Because Kalim are potter in a bar. That's what Rava meant. It's a big chiddush. So the Gemara says, second, Shimon is a human bar. Here's the problem. We had this a couple days ago. I think it was Daf Gimel. We had it recently. Rav and Shmuel have a machlokes. If you drop, again, bar from the Torah is you dig in the ground. So you're going to explain it to a tolda, right? Because people are not in the ground. It's a tolda. So we have a tolda of a bar, and that's where if I leave avnoi, sakinoi, and masoi. It's machlokes Rav and Shmuel. When is it a bar? Shmuel says always. According to Rav, it's only if you're mafker it. If you're not mafker it, so you can't be mafker yourself. Meaning, according to Rav, you're telling me that there's a human bar. According to Rav, you can't even have a rock as a bar if it's not hefker. It has to be ownerless. So how could a human person being a bar if your backpack's not a bar? So the Gemara says, Shmuel, you're telling me that a human is a bar. Okay, that works according to Shmuel, because he feels that you could be a bar if you're owned or if you're ownerless. Damar kol takala barhu. El Rav damar iafkarinu in iloi loi ma'ikal memor. According to Rav, you have to be ownerless to be a bar. So how could a human being be a bar? So the Gemara says, okay, scrap this. Let's go to the original pshat. The original pshat is Reuven falls, he's chayiv, and his bags are chayiv, because he's considered because he's chayiv and his bags are chayiv. Shimon, only he's chayiv, not his bags. Levi, he's chayiv, not his bags. Okay, because the second one is a bar created by the other person. The issue with that is that the first person we're saying is chayiv, whether he did damage or whether his kalim did damage. The problem is the Brisa said kulan. All cases, you're not chayiv for your bags. So we originally wanted to say, it means all of the victims. No good. Kulam. So we have a problem. Rava said that if Reuven's bags did damage, he's chayiv. The Brisa says not like that. You know how to answer very simply? Why is the bag chayiv? It's a bar. So wouldn't it make sense, wouldn't it depend on what the bag did? Meaning, Reuven falls. Shimon gets himself hurt on Reuven. It doesn't matter whether Shimon's body, whether Shimon's bag, because he's an Adam HaMazik. But his bags is a bar, yeah? So if someone, what's the bar chayiv for? Well, it's chayiv on Adam, not for Kalim. Meaning, so with Reuven's bags, if I were to ask you, is Reuven's bags responsible if something got hurt? The answer would be, it depends. If a human being got hurt on Reuven's bags, yes. If a bottle of wine broke on Reuven's bags, no. Because Reuven's bags are a bar. And a bar is not chayiv for damaging kalim. So you could make Rava and the Brisa work very beautifully. Rava says that Reuven is responsible for any damage his bag does. The Brisa says not, because it says kulam paturim. You want to know why? The Brisa is referring to a case where kalim got damaged on his bags. So it's a bar and it's patur from kalim. Rava was referring to humans damaged by his bags. So bar is chayiv on human beings. That's the difference. So the Gemara says, Lo'ilam kedam mikara. Really, you could just go with the original pshat. With the kashlach, if you're going to say kulan chayavin, how does Rava work with the brisa? Targum about the Rava, kamei the Ravina, shehiz a kalim bekalim. The case was, the brisa says your potter is where kalim got hurt on Reuven's bags. That's why you're potter. Now, just to end off, and we're not going to do the Mishnah. We'll stop after this. Amar. We said that if Reuven, Shimon, and Levi are walking, so Shimon falls over Reuven, Levi falls over Shimon, so Reuven has to pay for Shimon, Shimon has to pay for Levi. But we said if they all tripped on Reuven, then they're all chayiv. So what's the case? How could they all trip on Reuven? How is that possible? So the Gemara says, just mitzias. What's the case? Rav Papa Amar de Pascal Urche Keshalda. Rav Papa says that he blocked the road. Like a dead body, meaning he's lying across the road, so they're all just tipping over him. They're tripping over him. Or Rizvid Amar Kechutra de Samusa, he blocked the road like a stick of a blind person. I'm not 100% sure. So they say, one second. Told you Sunday daf. I don't really have much time. So look at Taisus speaks. I'll just see if I can read it quickly. Rav Papa Paula Gesirle the Rav Zvid the Pascal Urche Keshal the Loy Hay Larishn Chai Ben Eskeshlish Shahay Loy Lizar Keshara Sheni Shnafel Chutzah to Samusa the Havi Balak sign. One is crossing the blocking the road across, and one is blocking it at an angle. So the difference is he feels that if you block at an angle, that's harder to avoid. If you block in the front, you'd be like, okay, just step over him. But at an angle, it's harder. That's the machlekes of what the case is. But either way, you blocked him, and they all fell over Reuven, and not Levi falling over Shimon. I will stop it. Correct.